Thanks for tuning in to the Mission Matters podcast, where we feature successful, mission-driven leaders committed to creating a positive change in the world. Our mission with this channel is to inspire other leaders by providing industry insights, new ideas, and inspiring stories from the pros.
All right. Hello. My name is Paul Fythwar. I'm the host of this show, and I talk with leaders heading up mission-focused organizations. You know, I've said that 1,000 times. Leading from the heart, inspiring others, including myself, and making a difference in this community. The show is sponsored by Gregory Media, a certified B Corporation. To learn more about what a B Corporation is or what Gregory Media does, visit paulgregorymedia.com. Super excited about the show. I know they say that a lot of podcasts, but I really am excited about this show because I have with us Amy Van Polen. Amy, did I pronounce your last name right? I don't know if I even asked you that. Is it Polen?
Polen.
Polen,
yep.
Amy Van Polen. Okay, so I already learned something, and it's only 2 seconds into the podcast.
That's all good.
So Amy, throughout the past 25 years, you've held positions in nonprofit leadership, including fund development and management. And you currently serve as a CEO of Bridge Communities, which oversees an 8-person executive leadership team that consists of, I love this, fund development, community engagement, finance, programs, and evaluation directors. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
And thanks for heading up such a valued and esteemed organization. I'd love for you to tell our listeners what led you to Bridge Communities, maybe a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I have been in social services my entire career. I always tell people that I am an Iowa farm girl, and I graduated with my undergraduate on Saturday and moved to Chicago on Sunday. And I've been here for the last 30 plus years. I have always worked in social services. That is where my heart and my soul is. I was in direct client services for the first 10 years of my career, and then I did transition into nonprofit management with a focus in fund development, community engagement, try to stay as far away from those auditors and finance folks as I possibly can, and really just continue to focus on trying to lead the best that I can in an agency that is really committed to improving the lives of our folks that live in our communities.
That's awesome. So you've been in this game for a while now.
Yes, I have. I came to Bridge Communities itself about 17 years ago. In March, it'll be 17 years that I've been here at Bridge.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I just love everything about the Bridge mission. It just speaks to my own personal values in a way that I'm as excited today about the role and the position that I have with Bridge as I was 17 years ago when I started. So that I don't think a lot of people can say that. And so I feel incredibly blessed and privileged to be in a position that I am as excited about what I do, the possibilities of this organization, the impact that this organization makes, the work that our staff does and our volunteers do, and most importantly, our clients do. That sparks energy and gratitude in me as much today as it did 17 years ago.
That may make our 30-second clip right there. I mean, that's like a juicy nugget. And 17 years indeed. Not many people can say they have the same passion and drive as they did their first year starting. And we're going to do a deep dive into Bridge Communities because I want people to know exactly what Bridge Communities does and what they provide to the community. But I'm more interested in you. And I don't usually do this. I want to start with some leadership styles. Because a lot of executive directors and business owners listen to this podcast. And let's just dive right into we have prepared some questions in advance, and you have some key leadership strategies. And let me just ask you, what are some of those that get you through the day?
Sure. Yeah. I would say that I would describe myself as a very collaborative leader. I There's a couple of things. I am incredibly blessed to be a part of an organization that has just this incredibly talented, and maybe every leader says this, I don't know. But I am so blessed to have not only the 8-person leadership team, which brings this vast lived experiences and perspectives on how to do our work. But when they come around the table, there's such love and respect for one another that we are able to work through really challenging and difficult decisions at times. But beyond that, we have a staff of 28 total, and every single person shows up every single day ready to do their best work and be their best selves. When we are heavily invested in using Gallup as our engagement tools. And so we do Gallup surveys with our staff each year, and then really look at where do we have opportunities for improvement within those scales. We register incredibly high across the board on levels of engagement. And the areas that our staff most want to be a part of is knowing that their opinions matter and they count here at work, and that they have the opportunity, that their job is created and is executed in a way that they feel like they can do their very best work every single day. Those are two specific areas within Gallup that we are focusing on extensively this year. And that fits with my leadership style. I want folks to feel heard. I want them to feel valued. I want them to feel that they are supported in their professional development and their ideas, and their how they do their work, why they do it in the way that they do it. And so to be able to, I feel like, bring that to life, I am a very transparent leader. And what I think is interesting is that I just read an article the other day on this concept of transparency and collaborative leadership. And execs said that, 81% of execs stated that they feel that they have a transparent leadership style and et cetera. But only 58% of their employees and their staff actually agreed with that. So it did make me think I should probably do a little check-in with my team to have them tell me, am I being as transparent as what I think I am?
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, where's that feedback loop? And I think that's an important part of collaborative leadership style is
what
a really
transparency
strong feedback
mean
loop.
To you?
What does transparency mean to me? That's a great question. Yeah, transparency to me means that there's not a lot of layers. And again, we're not a huge organization. We're only 28 folks. And there are certain things that, of course, are, that I'm not able to discuss with, team, with the full team, with the executive team, et cetera.
Of course,
but that's a really, really small amount of things. And so it's having conversations with our board of directors and me saying to them, this is what I'm going to share with the leadership team, or this is what I'm going to share with the staff. There's very little between the leadership team and our frontline staff that one knows and the other doesn't. It's asking for feedback. Transparency to me is having a continual desire to learn and to ask for feedback from folks that I am working with and that I'm quote unquote leading. And so in addition to transparency, really active listening, I think that's a big part of being a collaborative leader. And really also staying silent at times. I don't need to be certainly the first voice. I don't need to be the only voice. Yeah, exactly. I often, particularly in leadership team meetings, I'm often the last person to speak. If I need to really add anything at all, there's, can be great conversation going on, great decision making being made. And I just sort of wrap it up and say, okay, I feel like we've heard this and we've heard this and we heard this. Is this correct? It sounds like we've worked this through and we're going to move on. I don't need to give a stamp of approval or anything like that. So,
that's a great technique. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that a couple of things for me also is particularly externally, but also internally, is also I lead with a lot of gratitude. I live my life with a lot of gratitude, a lot of self-awareness. I would say that one of the biggest things that my staff says about me is that I'm incredibly self-aware of what my strengths and what my weaknesses are. And I really carry very little ego on what my strengths and my weaknesses are, so I can have some pretty honest conversations with folks. I've done enough 360s in my life that they are so painful and so incredibly valuable all at the same time. And I've learned, I've had amazing supervisors and CEOs before me that took the time to say, all right, Amy, you Enneagram of an 8 and a high D on the desk and a high I, and, this person that can go in and make decisions and can just like take a lot of space in a room and do all of these things. Here's how I'm going to help coach you into taking all of those things and being a positive, and also then developing all of the things that can potentially be a negative in that, and helping you find the balance. I've had really, really good coaches try to help me be the best that I can be, and knowing who I am at my core. So
not only is that important, but you learn from them and carry that on, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I am so blessed in that. I mean, just 2 nights ago, I had dinner with 2 of our previous CEOs here at Bridge that are dear, dear friends of mine. And every 6 to 8 weeks, we get together for drinks and dinner. And
that's cool.
I just continue to learn from them and continue to enjoy their company and
it's like your own little mastermind group.
It is. That's and great. I'm really, really blessed with that.
That's great. Well, all the different traits of your leadership style that you've either learned or developed are quite common among leaders, but only the good ones, Amy, because there's so many out there. There's so many out there that I've seen that are not leadership. There's no ego in leadership for sure.
I appreciate you saying that. I really do. I have a couple of friends of mine right now that are really struggling in their places of employment based, because the leaders are not what they need, at this time in their life. And I work really, really hard to try to meet our staff and meet our clients. I have such respect for the families that are in our program to be struggling and to raise your hand to say, I need help to do this differently, is such a hard thing for us humans to do. And the fact that our families do that in times of such crisis in their life, I have such high regard and respect for them. That they, it's inspirational to me, to be honest with you, that anyone can pick up a phone or send in an email to say, can you please help me? That's a big thing for a lot of people to do.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is. And we're going to get into that too. I can't think of the word. It's on the tip of my tongue now for that, but I'll come back to that. I love what you said before also about a heart of, was it a mindset of gratitude?
Mindset of gratitude. Absolutely.
Well, because you can look at those bad leaders and turn that around and say, okay, I definitely don't want to do that.
Yes.
My daughter.
I think we've all had those situations in life too, where you're like, I'm going to remember this so that I don't do this. This is presented to me. Yes.
My daughter in her undergrad had a teacher, a professor, that was so terrible. And practiced or taught the opposite of what the text was teaching, and wrote him a letter and said, "Thank you for being such a great teacher of what not to do."
But what
She never
not to
sent it.
do.
She never sent it. It was
Yeah.
therapeutic. But I love
Yep.
that she did that, and she's carried that through. She's now a teacher in Ecuador, and she remembers that incident very, very well.
Those things can stick out for you.
They
And
do.
if you are able, and I love people, because I've done that before too, like journal, write your letter, get it out. You don't need to send it because that's not
Yeah.
what it's about. It's just getting this out and processing it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that can really help you then take that forward.
It's
So
therapeutic and it does stand
it
out.
is.
So let's move on. We have this next question I have for you is more about what's on the mind of every executive director, because you can't do anything without funding.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a lot of funding development experience.
Mm-hmm.
You've established that clearly over the course of your entire career. And I would love to just go over some of your more successful fund development techniques and share that
Mm-hmm.
with our audience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gosh. To me, well, there's two things. One, I think there's a fallacy in belief that good fundraisers need to be extroverts. They need to talk. They need to just be happy all the time. And some of the best fundraisers are introverts, or at least persons that are extroverts, but they have figured out how to stay quiet and how to listen. Because honestly, particularly my work, I've done all types of fundraising. And again, working in small social service organizations with budgets anywhere between, say, $2 million and $10 million over the years. And then also when I was doing consulting, the vast majority of my consulting were in social services. And again, budgets that size. It's always, again, just kind of where my heart has been. But so I've done everything from grant writing to events to major gift work, feasibility studies, capital campaigns, all of that. But where my expertise and my heart and soul really lives is in major gift work. And so when you are doing that type of work, it's really about finding out what is it that the donor values? What is it that makes their heart sing? And finding out why they give, not even like who they give to, but why they give, because that's going to lead to who you should help try to connect them to. We have a wonderful, wonderful donor here at Bridge. And it absolutely warms my heart that we have a relationship and that she's come to me on several occasions to say, can you help me find an organization that does X? Because she understands and she knows that I know what makes her heart sing, what makes her happy. I have brought her ideas to say, have you heard of this organization before? This has nothing to do with funding Bridge. This has to do with her meeting her charitable and philanthropy goals that are either with Bridge or outside of Bridge. I say this about volunteers. I say this about donors. Find what makes you happy and then give to that, get involved with that, do that. And if that's Bridge, that's terrific. But if it's something else, that's great too. When I led the fund development team here at Bridge, it's a team of about 7 folks now. When I started, it was just me and one part-time person, and I've had the good fortune to help build that team over the years. And now it's a team of 7. We really look at that it's not our responsibility to sort of compete over this finite pie of resources. It's our responsibility to look out into the community and make that pie of resources larger, to engage and excite more and more people to engage in philanthropy in their community in whatever form that looks like to them.
Such an
And
interesting
so,
perspective.
yeah, I mean, there is no win in saying, gosh, I've got to look at this agency's donors or this agency's donors. And it's more about how do we make that pie of folks that are engaged in philanthropy larger in our community. That's how our communities, I
Whether
believe, are
it's for you or
thrive.
not, which is
Yeah, it does not matter. Yeah,
it
does
takes the
not matter.
pressure off of the conversation for one, right? Is what I'm gathering. And two, it's not as threatening as a conversation when you're saying, hey, if you want to give what really floats your boat, what really makes your heart sing, as you said.
Yes.
And then if it's not
Yes.
with us, that's fine. But we know a lot of I've never met an executive director that didn't know a lot of other executive directors. So you
Yes,
have that
exactly.
clear relationship that you could point to, a really good nonprofit that would be, something
That
that
makes your
would make
heart
that donor
sing.
happy.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Um, so really taking the time to get to know your donors personally and what their values are, and then getting out of the way. I always look at it as that um, the relationship between myself and our supporters is not about me. I am the conduit to their values match. I am the person that's able to connect what makes their heart happy and their intentions. And to me, that's a great privilege to me to be in a position to be that conduit, to be that connector. Um, but when I leave, someone else will connect that person.
Right.
And I will do that somewhere else, or I will do that in a different way. And that doesn't mean that I don't adore our donors and I don't really,
Of
really
course.
care
Yes.
about them. I just have this it's such a place of honor and privilege to be that conduit for them.
I've been doing this for 17 years, Amy, and maybe I just don't know a lot of development directors, but that's the first time I heard that type of, it's not, I don't want to say culture, but the type of technique, and saying it's almost like it reminds me of Miracle on 34th Street when Macy's was sending people to Gimbals, right? It's like, hey, if
Yes,
we don't have
yes.
the toy, here's a
Go
toy
get
store
it
that does.
somewhere else. Yeah, go
Right.
get it
So
somewhere else.
it's not a
Because if
unique
that's the toy
concept,
you
but it's
need, yes, if that toy is going to make your grandchild or your child happy, go do it.
so that's the nugget
Because
for the
in
business
ways it
development.
comes back to us. It comes back to us in other ways. It really does. I don't, our communities and our agencies as we're working together,
Yeah.
we're not as siloed. And if we are siloed, we have to find ways to be more integrated with one another. Bridge is a very external organization. We create almost all of our programs in collaboration with other sister agencies or other organizations. And as in that, and that even comes into our funding. We are not an organization that is funded by government grants. We don't have like big, large government contracts and grants. We are funded by the $100, the $1,000, the 20,000, whatever that meaningful amount is to that person. We're funded by thousands of those persons, So we have to be so external focused. And I think when you are that external focused, you have that philosophy that you have to be interwoven and interconnected with one another.
Wow.
And I think that leads to that type of philosophy of giving.
That's a great lesson for those nonprofit leaders that may not already know that. I'm sure there's a lot that do, but that honest, transparent conversation of what makes you happy, what makes your heart sing in terms of if you want to give to some donation. It may not be ours, but we
Right.
know enough people in this industry that we might be able to make an introduction.
Absolutely.
That comes from a very true place. So I love that. I do want to get into bridge communities, but I want to just cover one more thing. We already talked about your key leadership strategies, and now we just hit the nugget on funding development. The last thing I wanted to touch upon was culture, because that's important to you, building a strong culture within the organization. And strong is one thing, but the type of culture, I think, is also important. I'd love to hear your thoughts on your culture within bridge communities and how that's developed.
Gosh, Bridge, we just came out of our 35th anniversary year. And Mark Milligan and Bob Walgren, our two co-founders, they set a culture and set a dynamic here at Bridge that continues to live today. And I am so honored to be the person, the steward. I really look at myself as the steward of this amazing culture that has been around for 35 years now.
Wow.
When I took, and I've been at Bridge for a long time, I was, an internal candidate. And when I went through the interviewing process for the CEO job, it was like, I promise I won't mess it up. Mark will not be happy with me. Bob will not be happy with me if I mess this up. But so one of the things that we're doing right now as an organization is really determining, is there a certain word or a certain descriptor that we would describe our culture as of right now? Where we've landed currently is, if you looked at, different cultures that say like Harvard Business Review and things, put together, the different types of culture that are out there. I would say that the two areas that our staff is identifying and leaning into right now is that we are a culture of caring and a culture of purpose. The culture of purpose is really important to us because it drives, and I think I talked about this at the beginning of our talk today, is it drives persons to feel like they can come in and do their best work every single day. If you know what the purpose is as to why are we here, why do we exist, then you can determine how do I do my best work every day to support that purpose. So I would say that is sort of the cultural style. We really emphasize long-term. It really fits into even our mission. I'm a deep believer in organizations that do short-term need, have it be food pantries, rental assistance, all the short-term. We need those organizations. Bridge, our mission is long-term. And so again, I think that becomes a natural fit because we focus and we make decisions based on its long-term impact. We are not an organization that thinks about, well, let's do this because it's going to be good for us for the next 2 months. Obviously there's little things that get done, but the big cultural type of things, we look at it and say, is this going to be a benefit to our mission and our vision for the long term? And I think that that's very connected to having and being grounded in a culture of purpose.
And caring.
And caring, yes. Caring, I'm a big fan and I'm a big believer in culture of caring. What we work a lot on here at Bridge is how do we make sure that we are focusing on the positives of culture of caring and not culture of caring at times can get you a little stuck in things. All cultures have their positives and negatives. And so we really look at how, with a culture of caring, do we focus on teamwork? Do we focus on doing what is best for others? How do we focus on a sense of belonging? We've been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years on making sure that we are creating an environment of belonging, and so that everyone can show up as their exact self and as their truth and who they are and be valued and celebrated for being that person. And that really does come through as a value of culture of caring.
Yeah. And like you said, be able to do their best work. And
yes.
I think all of that wrapped up lowers your attrition rate.
Yes. Bridge, when I I would like to say that my 17 years is atypical here at Bridge, but it honestly is not. I mean, we have folks that have it be on staff as volunteers that have been with us for 30 plus years.
No.
And so
Oh, that's awesome.
it gets into your DNA. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
Paul, Bridge just gets into your DNA. So
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, let's use that transition to talk about Bridge then. What are some of the programs that you provide? And I'd love to know like the typical client that comes in. What are they facing?
yeah. So let's see. So mission of Bridge. We are a transitional housing organization that works with families facing homelessness here in DuPage County. So a couple of key things that are in that mission. We work exclusively with families, meaning that you have to have dependent children in your household. Your family can be any combination, any way, which or form, single, married, not married, living together, grandma, other adult that now has custody of children, same-sex couple, whatever family. We've known families in every shape and size and every dynamic, but there must be dependent children. That is what drove Mark and Bob to found Bridge 35 years ago, was their experiences with children that were homeless. And that just was such that just shook their values to the core of like, how would I provide the life that I know my children have? How would I do that if I were suffering from homelessness? And so must have dependent children. Our focus area is DuPage County. That's not because there's not family homelessness in other counties and the other areas of the Chicagoland area, but that is our focus area. And transitional housing. So what that means is that we work with our families for anywhere between 2 to 3 years. They live independently in apartments that we own. And we work on the long-term root causes of homelessness in their family unit. You will notice that our mission, I love organizations that their mission is to end homelessness on a countywide or on a geographically based. Love that. Love everything about it. That is not our focus and our mission. We have always said that our purpose is to end homelessness with that particular family unit. And we do it over and over and over and over again. And as that work happens, it becomes a current. And our hope is that it's a tidal wave throughout our community to lift and elevate our community and create a much more equitable, welcoming, thriving community through this work that we do on a family level basis.
Wow. Did you say the typical family is in your program for about 2 years?
2 years. Transitional housing by HUD is defined as a 2-year program, but because we are privately funded, we can really make whatever rules we want in how long a family is in our program. So again, it's very family based. The root causes of family homelessness is often based in economics and in abuse. And the economics are lack of affordable housing and families not earning a living wage. Most families facing or experiencing homelessness are working. We see that in our statistics. Last year, 92% of the families coming into our program that were experiencing homelessness were actually working. And so it's a combination of a lack of affordable housing and low-paying jobs and underemployment, lack of employment, and lack of education to then be able to move into a job that has a higher pay. All of those things to change takes time. And so that's why we work with families on a roughly 2 to 3 year time period. because we need families to improve their education, improve their earning potential, improve their opportunity for having and maintaining stable housing. Because unfortunately, we can't change the cost of housing. I would love to own every apartment building in DuPage County and lower the rental rates for folks, but that's not going to happen. And so knowing that these are the environmental factors that exist in our communities, how do we move families to a place where they have a living wage, they have an education that allows for them to continue to provide stability for their families? And then in addition to all of that, we're also working on budgeting and really understanding the money that's coming in and the money that's going out. How do we make sure that those two things are aligning? We're working on savings. We're working on credit repair. We're working on all of the financial elements that the family needs to be stable. And then at the heart of what we're really doing is all of the soft skills of healing. You know, our families have been highly traumatized through abuse often. At any given time, about 65% of our families are survivors of violence in their background, have that be emotional or physical violence. And the healing needs to happen. The healing needs to happen for the adults in the family. The healing needs to happen for the children in the family. And again, that's going to take time. That takes time. And so that's a big part of what we work on too, is how do we get the family to a place? How does that family get themselves to a place really?
Mentally.
So that they feel confident, that they feel worthy, that they feel a value.
Is there counseling going on to manage that?
So we work with some great agencies, in our community that do family counseling and individual counseling, children's counseling. Our mentors and our staff certainly do that in ongoing ways, but true mental health therapy and counseling, we work with some really fantastic organization in the community. And we highly encourage all of our families to go through, different, types of counseling that would be helpful for them.
Well, sure. I imagine sometimes the kids would have to.
100%. We get funding specifically for the kids to go through funding or to go through therapy. We also do like a couple of really fantastic support groups that are focused for our kids to go through, that really focus on loss. Many of the children in our program don't have a relationship with both of their parents, or they may not have a relationship with other persons in their family. And there's a loss there, and they need to be able to process that loss. So that's a program that we offer. A lot of peer support for the moms. We do a lot of peer support. Moms often feel very, very alone in their journeys. And so coming together with other, and it is primarily women that are in our program, single moms, but even single dads or other couples, but coming together as a group to learn and to heal with one another is really, really powerful. Yeah, it's really powerful.
That's amazing. Just to back up for a second, because there's the education component also. So do you partner with other agencies to provide education to maybe level up their skills so they could
absolutely
find better employment? Okay.
Yeah. So
it's really,
we are so blessed to have College of DuPage right in our backyard. Oh my gosh, they're such an amazing organization. We have families that go to, Aurora University, Benedictine University, College of DuPage, all sorts of different organizations. We have this really interesting partnership with some of the utility companies. They're doing some really interesting partnerships with social service agencies that persons can go through training programs through the utility companies to then come on board with them because they're good, living wage jobs with good benefits, multiple types of shifts and hours.
Awesome.
So again, lots of partnerships with healthcare systems in our areas for some, again, really good living wage jobs.
Awesome. So I always loved asking this next question, which is about relevance. What would happen if bridge communities went away? So maybe more specifically, my question is, I'm curious to what the unmet need is, if there is an unmet need, and how big it is. How many people do you have to turn away?
Yeah, our phone will ring about 2,500 times a year in unduplicated requests. So the need is unfortunately really large of folks that are experiencing some type of housing crisis. Are all of those folks eligible for our program? No, but these are all persons who have said, I have a crisis going on in regards to my housing and I need some help. And they call us amongst other organizations looking for that help.
So there's 2,500 people or families just in the county.
Just in 1 year. Yeah, each year.
1 year. And then of those, some of them are not eligible, but let's assume that maybe 50% of them are. Is that a fair?
Yep.
Okay, so 50%, so about 1,250 people a year. How many do you service?
Oh my goodness. This gets really sad really fast. We will bring in about between 40 and 50 new families each year.
And there you go.
So, yeah. And that's not based on the fact that that's the only amount that are eligible. That's truly based on, if we're a 2 to 3 year program and what our capacity is, and we will be able to serve, about a new class each year of around 40 families. What I can tell you is that there are nearly 2,000. It's like 1,932 children were identified as homeless in DuPage County schools at the beginning of the school year. So
you wouldn't think the number would be that high in DuPage County.
I know.
As wealthy of a county as it is.
And that's what I think is so important for people to understand is that the optics of DuPage County, it appears that organizations such as Bridge they're not relevant. They're not needed. But the fact of the matter is that, as I said, 92% of the families that came into our program last year were working, but they're working in jobs that are not paying them enough to afford housing. And when you start to think about all of the interactions that you may have on a daily basis with folks that are not making a living wage job, which in DuPage County is just about $25 an hour. So we think about all of the persons that we interact with on a daily basis that are not making $25 an hour. And that's a living wage for a single wage earner with 2 children. And that's a lot of people, that's a lot of people. What I can tell you is that 44% of persons in our county are rent burdened. That means that they are paying more than 40% of their income to their living expenses, which means a medical expense, a car expense, something happens, it can so easily derail.
It's not sustainable.
And what I always say to people, you can try to shut down a lot of different expenses, meaning you can go hungry. You can, not buy that new pair of shoes, or your children's clothes could be too small or things like that. But you can't call your landlord and say, well, if we don't use that bedroom, can you take $200 a month off of our lease?
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really, really, really challenging. And I think that that's why organizations such as Bridge and so many other amazing organizations in this county are relevant and are needed. Because while DuPage is a very wealthy county, but it appears to be, really without so many problems. But the fact of the matter is that our residents There are residents that are hurting and they are in need. And we have the opportunity and the resources to help residents and help our neighbors take those steps forward to change their long-term outcomes. And I just think that that's such a really fantastic and just an amazing place to be able to be, to have those resources and to have that skill set to create a community that thrives and is rich and is varied. And when I say rich, I mean rich in culture and rich in diversity and rich in joy and just in healthiness. That's what I mean by rich.
Yeah. Certainly making a difference in people's lives, which is such a great thing to have in our community. And the partnerships that you have with other agencies is tremendous to be able to give these services to these clients as well.
Oh, absolutely. We do this in partnership with almost 45 primarily faith communities, as well as dozens of other educational institutions, businesses, social service agencies, school districts. And we do not do this alone by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. Well, Amy, I think you've said it all. I think what I'm hearing is, the capacity limitation, and you're serving 40 families or so every year, but there's such a great need out there. If people wanted and felt moved by this to donate to Bridge Communities, what's the website address?
Sure. It is www.bridgecommunities.org.
Bridge Community. Can't get any simpler than that, right? It's the name.
Easy peasy.
.org.
Bridgecommunities.org.
Well, I appreciate you coming on this podcast, telling us about Bridge. I loved talking about your leadership styles because that's sort of where my heart is. Any parting thoughts for our listeners as we end this?
Oh gosh. You asked me this earlier, and I thought to myself, I've got to find a punchy catchphrase or something.
Well, I like what you said about
I guess. Yeah. And I mentioned this earlier. I am just a really strong advocate and believer in that it's my responsibility here at Bridge to create an environment that people not only can, but they want to, and they're valued and they're celebrated for showing up for exactly who they are. I think about the land of Winnie the Pooh. And it is one of the few stories out there that every character is valued for exactly who they are. No one is trying to change them. They are who they are. And I strive really hard to create that environment here at Bridge that celebrates and values who each individual is so that they can be their very best self here. And I strive to do that on a community-wide basis. Think of how beautiful that community would be, that we're all able to be exactly who we are and be our truth and be ourselves, and be valued and celebrated for just that, just being you.
That would be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it would be. So,
well, I think that's a great parting thought. Celebrate us as we are.
Yes, a good way to go into the new year. So, absolutely. Sure. Yep.
Thank you so much for being on this podcast. I appreciate it. I hope our listeners learn quite a bit here. Till next time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Matters podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.